Hi, my name is Marcus and I'd like to talk about outsourcing and offshoring. Now more than ever, business environments in which we operate tests the strongest organisations. A confluence of challenges including tight economic conditions, increased competition and the rising business costs combine to act as a catalyst for organisations to look for and implement new innovative ways to gain a cooperative edge in order to survive. One method that has received increased attention and adoption is outsourcing, which is also commonly referred to business process outsourcing or BPO. Several of the most common models of BPO include offshoring, traditional outsourcing, in which a company is contracted far outside the original country for outsourcing, nearshoring, offshoring, in which a company is contracted outside the originating company's country in a country that is close to the outsourcing company's country of business. Another form of offshoring is when a company or an organisation, rather than contracting with a third-party offshore organisation, hires staff in an offshore country to work directly for it. This is also referred to as subshoring. It provides the company with a greater amount of control of employee ownership than usually found in typical outsourced and offshore relationship. There are a number of regions and specific countries around the globe that have a vibrant, growing outsourced business. Along countries that have a strong outsource and offshore business market, India maintains a commanding lead with the estimated $3 billion in revenues expected from offshoring in 2008. Other locals such as China, Eastern Europe, Philippines, Morocco, Egypt and South Africa become prime destinations for outsourcing and offshoring. Outsourced operations are also generally conducted through one of three of the following business models. Transactional BPO handles one aspect of business process only. Niche BPO carries out 3 or 4 aspects of business processes. And comprehensive BPO handles both transactional and administrative tasks of a business process and can take up to 70% of responsibility of the output. But there's also some negatives about outsourcing. Now I have about 10, and these are the following. So cost reduction expectations. The biggest risk with offshore outsourcing has nothing to do with the outsourcing itself. It involves the expectations of the internal organisation has about how much the savings from an offshore will be. Unfortunately, many executives assume that labour tribute will yield savings comparable to person-to-person comparison, e.g. full-time equivalent will cost 40% less in India. Without regard to the hidden costs and differences in operation models, in reality, most IT organisations save 15 to 25% during the first year, and by the third year, cost savings often reach 35% to 40% as companies go up a learning curve for offshoring, outsourcing model, modify operations to align offshore model. Data security. IT organisations evaluating any kind of outsourcing question whether vendors have sufficient robust security practice and if vendors meet the current security requirements they have internally. While most IT organisations find offshore vendor security practices impressive, often exceeding internal practices, the risks of security breaks or intellectual property protection is inherently raised in working with an international business. Process and discipline. The capability model, CMM, becomes an important measure of a company's readiness to adopt an offshore model. Companies lacking internal process model maturity will undermine potential cost savings. Loss of business knowledge. Most IT organisations have business knowledge that resides within the developers of the applications. Some cases, expertise may be their property or competitive advantage. Companies must carefully assess business knowledge and determine if moving it either outside the company or to an offshore location will compromise company practices. Vendor failure to deliver. A common oversight with IT organisations is contingency plan. What happens if the vendor, all best intentions and contracts aside, simply fails to deliver? Although such failures are expectations, they do occur, even with the superb quality methodologies of offshore vendors. There is no such thing as a fixed price contract. All outsourcing contracts contain baselines and assumptions. If the actual work varies from estimates, the client will pay the difference. This simple fact has become a major obstacle for IT organisations that are surprised that the price is not fixed and that the vendor expects to be paid for increment scope charges. Government oversight and regulation is another such problem. Utilities, financial service institutions and health organisations, among others, face various degrees of governmental oversight. These IT organisations must ensure that the offshore vendor is sensitive to the industrial specific requirements of the vendor's ability to 1. Comply with the government regulations, 2. Provide sufficient transparency that show that it does not comply and thus accountable during audits. Culture. A representative example, although English is one official language in India, pronunciation and accents vary tremendously. Many vendors put call centre employees through accent training. In addition, culture differences, including religions, models of dress, social activities, and even the way a question is answered. Most leading vendors have cultural education programs, but executives should not assume that the cultural alignment will be insignificant or trivial. 9. Turnover of key personnel. So rapid growth among outsourcing vendors has created a dynamic labour market, especially in Bangalore, India. Key personnel are usually in demand for new high-profile jobs or even risks of being recruited by offshore vendors. While offshore vendors will often quote all-over turnover statistics that appear relatively low, the more important statistics to manage is the turnover of key personnel on an account. And last, knowledge transfer. The time and effort to transfer knowledge to a vendor is cost rarely accounted by IT organisations. Indeed, we observe that most IT organisations experience a 20% decline in productivity during the first year of agreement, largely due to time spent transferring both technical and business knowledge to a vendor. Business impacts offshore outsourcing can reduce IT expectations 15-25% within the first year. Longer-term process improvements often make great impacts on both cost savings and the quality of IT services delivered. Bottom line, as IT organisations consider vast benefits of luring offshore outsourcing, they must balance the risks with uncertainties and the potential for labour attributed